All right, we just launched, and so we're giving everybody just a moment or two to hop in here so you don't miss the start. Lacey, you're going to queue up the slides. And here's what will happen, gang. It's my goal, thank you for being here. It's my goal to be able to get through all of this material in about 45 or 50 minutes for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to start, we just built this out in the last few weeks. We're going to start with the stop list. And so this is what we're calling the stop start list. And of course, it's how to win in a long-term COVID market. Something that is much longer than any one of us. I mean, maybe not you, but much longer than I gave it credit back in March of this year. And so we're going to go through some of the thoughts that we've come up with, what we've learned by doing nearly 200 webinars and Zooms training since the middle of March. And so we've certainly learned some things that we didn't know. We are certainly having some thoughts we weren't having then. And I really want to be able to give some direction of what I think the right next steps are and what I think the right next things are that are going to work in your business and what we're seeing that works right now and some of the things that we're seeing that doesn't. So we'll jump right into it. If you want to, if you're just going to see the recording at the end of this, at the very, very end, I'm going to give you the, I think, is it 9 or 6? 10. I'm going to give you the 10 lead gen levers that we believe work the best right now in the order that I think you should be doing them. And it's okay if we disagree on that, but this is the order that I think they should come in for your business. We're going to give that to you at the very, very end. So if you're one of my friends who's just grabbing the download of this and you weren't able to make the webinar live, or you're watching the replay, if you want to skip a whole bunch of my words and thoughts, you certainly can. Might be the very best part. Just fast forward that bad chicken to the very end. Probably somewhere around minute 52 or 55, and we'll give those 10. So Lacey, if you'll launch the slides, I'll jump right in. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
All right, so here's the start stop list. And what I want to do is we're going to start with the idea behind what we think you should stop doing. And I think that it's important to think about what you should stop doing first. It's almost like, listen, something terrible happens, something big happens. And someone told me a really long time ago, we were working on business planning. And he said, you know what? He said, he said, you're the type of person who works hard anyway. And it was kind of the idea behind, well, I mean, Gary talked about it in the One Thing book, right? Like talked about how it might be more important for a doer, for a highly productive person, for someone who's constantly moving, constantly shaking, constantly making moves. It might be more productive for that person to build a not to-do list instead of a to-do list. And so you might consider that. Now, there's some people I've coached back when I coached outside of United Home Group, my expansion business, back when I coached outside of that, I had to think some people needed a to-do list. In other words, they were very scattered. They weren't getting a whole lot done, but others were highly effective and almost like the type of person that if they laid down on the couch to take a nap, they would come bolting off the couch in 30 minutes like, whoa, what's going on around here? Like that type of behavior, that kind of person, I've spent more time on a not to-do list. Like, let's get rid of some of the things that you're doing to make room for things that matter. So that's why we start with the stop list. So what we've done is we've put together 14 things that we think you should stop doing now. Then we're going to pivot. And I'm going to talk about each one just for a moment or two. And the way that I've built this is if you don't like one of the stops, then just fast forward to the next one. And if you don't like one of the starts, just fast forward to the next one. There's nothing right or wrong about this. And I want to propose the idea to you that none of us know what the hell we're doing. I want you to think about that. Remember why you signed up for this webinar. It's how to succeed in a long-term COVID market. Guess how much experience you and I have in a long-term COVID market? Pretty much none. And both of us have the same level of experience. I was doing a webinar for a group probably a month ago, and it was, I had probably lost my patience, to be really candid. It was towards the end of it, and we were doing some Q&A, and somebody said, blah, 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 I'm new. And I lost it, and I was like, damn it, we are all new. We are absolutely all new at this right now. Like, I'm new, you're new. Nobody has empirical data. Nobody can say, the last time I sold 200 homes during a global pandemic. No one gets to say that. So I want you to think about that. We're all new together. So I want you to stop wondering and wanting COVID to be over. I want you to quit it. Like as a human being, now I look at the world like this, and maybe it works for you. I think of the world as a human being first. I think of the world as being a business second, though, and those are two different things. As a human being, I am hoping that some glorious Monday morning, some late stage biochemical company has come up with a antidote for COVID or a cure for COVID, and it's a shot, and it comes in the form, or it's a pill or a powder, and it comes in the form of a taco, and we all have one, and we're great. We never have to worry about COVID again, and it's no big deal. And 2020 goes down as the year of the greatest memes in history. But as a business, I can't hope for that. As a business, I can't think that. And so many of my friends that are real estate agents that are truly solopreneurs, it's almost like they're waiting around for COVID to be over. I don't think this is over, and I don't think it's going to be over anytime soon. And I was on a call with Gary Keller, and it was his top private group, and he said, blah, 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 dealing with this for the next 2 or 3 years, blah, 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 blah. And I went, whoa, what? Whoa, stop the car. What the hell are you talking about? The next 2 or 3 years? And he went on to talk about how even if COVID's over, the market that it affects isn't over. Even if COVID were to be over this fall, I mean, what does that even mean, right? Like, you and I are having conversations like new normal. What does normal even look like? I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, you realize that our kids, I mean, my littlest one is 8. He's got a little one who's about 1. He said, my little girl might grow up in a world where handshakes are barbaric. Just think about that just for a moment. You and I grew up in a world where we were told, you know what, that handshake, it's your first impression. It's a good, strong handshake. It says, I'm going to take it from here. You can trust me. You look someone right in the eyes and you shake their hand really strong. And we might be in a world after this where that doesn't happen at all. And you think, how does that change everything? What does that look like? We could live in a world where masks become like commonplace, that it would be weird if you weren't wearing one. And I'm not talking about right now. I'm talking about 6 months from now or 6 years from now. We don't know. So I need you to quit waiting for this to be over. And I need you to just make peace with the fact that this is the way life looks. This is how it is now. This is the way it is. As it changes again, because it always does, then you could look at life that way. The reason I started with this one is that I'm probably the biggest offender of this. In March, like the beginning of March, I mean, I travel for a living 90 days a year as a speaker, right? And so the beginning of March, I've got a full travel schedule for the year. I'm booking people out the very end of 2020, the beginning of 2021, like I'm packed. And the beginning of March, people are starting to say, well, I don't know if and I'm like, what? Like, I'm laughing at it. And then as the middle of March showed up, I quit laughing at it. And then one Thursday, before I was heading to New York to speak for 3 days, one Thursday, like everything just went from here to here. And by the following Wednesday or Thursday, 1 week later, I had canceled over 80 one-day speaking engagements. That's an entire year's worth of speaking. It's an entire year's worth of income of speaking, right? And your business looks a lot the same. And I remember thinking, this will be a short-term thing. This will come and go. Gosh, gee whiz, maybe, and then quarantine happened. And I thought, okay, well, maybe we do this for 3 weeks or we do this for 4 weeks. And of course, I became a homeschool teacher like many of you did if you have kids at home. And I thought, I'm really not cut out to be a homeschool teacher. Like, I learned really, really fast. And then I thought, okay, well then when the kids go back to school in the fall, well, crazy enough, it's almost August. Like, if you stopped and thought about that, it's basically Christmas again already. Like, that's how I feel about the year. And you look down and you're like, oh man, like in Portland where I live, right? We had noticed kids were going to go 2 days and then not for the rest of the week. And then we just got notice again that they're not going to do that at all, that we're going to go completely virtual again till at least the middle of November. And of course, I'm looking at that going, well, gosh, that probably means January. I don't know what your school system looks like, but I do know this. I don't have the luxury to wait for this to be over. This is just the way life is. It may not be life in 10 years, but it's going to be probably life in 10 days. And it's also probably going to be life in 10 weeks. And that's where my business has to live. I'll come back and circle back to this, so keep that in mind. I want you to stop thinking that your results belong to anybody but you. Like, this is where it's extreme ownership, right? Like, which is a great book, by the way. And I'll give you a few book recommendations throughout our time together today. Extreme ownership's a good one. But stop thinking that your results belong to anybody but you. They don't. They absolutely don't. They don't belong to your team leader. They don't belong to the person that you work with. They don't belong to your spouse. They don't belong to your, to anybody. They literally just belong to you. In other words, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And you have to be able to, you have to be willing to look at the world like this. The greatest news is when you look in the mirror and you say, yeah, that's on me. Because the only thing that you have any control over is you. The only thing that you can have any impact on, true impact on, is you. It's always going to be you. It's always going to come down to you. The good news is it's all you can control. So stop thinking that your results belong to anybody but you. I was talking to a good friend last week, and they were going on and on and on about the market and what had happened and what had changed and how it impacted this and impacted that. And I just said, stop. I said, you have to own all of that. And they're like, no. And I said, yeah, you have to own all of it. And I want you to write it down this way. It won't be on the screen, so you got to write this down. It may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. Those are two different things. And I think what I struggle with sometimes is that when I take extreme ownership and I take extreme responsibility, sometimes it's hard to decipher between responsibility and fault. I'm okay with saying, not my fault. I didn't create it, but it is 100% my responsibility. Those are two different things. And I would just push you to think of it that way. I would push you to have that be your core thought. It is 100% my responsibility. You may not have to take on the yoke of fault, but it is your responsibility, especially if you want it to look different or to change. And I want you to stop looking at real estate. And market stats incessantly. Here's what I want you to do, and it won't be on the screen. I want you to think about real estate stats and market stats as being important, but not vital. They're important, but not vital. Here's what I mean by it. I've got another friend who sends me almost every single day some type of article about the market or what's happening or how things are changing or what it means in this city or means in that state. And it's like, all right, well, this is entertaining, it's interesting, but it doesn't change what I have to do today. And the reason that market stats are important to you is because that's the world you live in. The reason they are not vital to you is that you make money in a world of human beings. And again, I want you to be able to cut those two things apart. It's important to know the stats, but it's not vital. You know what's vital? Human connection. You know what's vital? Talking to the human beings. You and I chose a business where you got to talk to the humans. That's what's vital. I think if you're a good real estate agent, you got to know the numbers. You got to know what's happening. You have to know what's happening in your market, and you have to know what's happening to the market, but it's not vital. In other words, if you're like me, it's like a hole, and I start digging in it, and I'm interested in it. Well, what's happening here? What's happening here? Do we have more homes on the market? Is it a buyer's market or a seller's market? I mean, here's the truth. Like if you've been in real estate for less than 10 or 12 years, you've only seen a seller's market. Like that's a fact. Especially the last 8 years, you've only seen a seller's market. And at some level, a red hot seller's market. I saw a stat a few weeks ago, I don't know if it's true or not, but it said 85% of all realtors who roam the earth today have never sold homes in anything except a swift seller's market. And in that market, it's really easy to be a genius. In that market, it's really easy to know everything. In that market, it's really easy to look amazing. But you know what? Everything changes. It always does. That's the only thing you and I know. So let me clean up this slide for a second. Yes, I want you to look. Yes, I want you to know. Yes, it's interesting. Yes, it's entertaining. Yes, you should know them, but you got to quit looking at them incessantly. And the reason is what happens is I spin out on them. And what happens is if I look for more than a couple of minutes, like here's my little hack, I'll look for 2 or 3 minutes. After that, I got to stop looking. Because if I don't, I go down this hole that I can't get back out of. And then what happens is, have you ever heard the comment like it's important who you hang out with? Well, when you look at stats, you're hanging out with stats. When you're looking at market conditions, you're hanging out with market conditions. And you look at the stock market right now, right? Like wildly up, wildly down. I mean, crazy left and right. Somebody was sending me yesterday all kinds of information about, like there's a stat out there. I don't know how accurate it is, but there's a statistic that 28 million people didn't make a home payment, a mortgage payment or a rent payment last month. 28 million in the US. That's a really big deal. 28 million. What does that mean in 3 months or 4 months? That's an entertaining thought. It's an interesting dialogue. But you know what? I got to make money for the next 3 or 4 months before those 3 or 4 months show up. So it's interesting to me to know it, but it's not vital. You know what's vital? How many people can I talk to today? You know what's vital? Who can I be in front of today? There's probably somebody in my database who's going to be on the notice of defaults, which I'll talk about towards the end of this presentation. There's probably somebody in my database right now that I'm talking to who's going to be on the NOD list in 3 or 4 months. Do you know what? I got to deal with that 3 or 4 months from now, not today. I want you to stop lounging and sleeping in. And I don't want this to sound like it's hypercritical. Though if it needs to be hypercritical for you, then maybe you got to take it that way. So many people are taking the idea of quarantine, the idea of being at home, the idea of COVID, the idea of whatever you want to call life as we know it today. And it's like a giant break. They're sleeping in more, they're lounging in more. I was reading a study the other day that the average American is sleeping 75 more minutes per day. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. I do know this. I know that if you're like me and you're a business owner, that's probably a bad idea. I do know if you're like me and you got to hustle every day, probably a bad idea. Like I know this, the people, I mean, there's 3 groups of people out there who are realtors today. Group number 1 is killing it. They're like, this is awesome. Group number 2 is like, this is really hard. I don't know what to do right now. And group number 3 doesn't even know what the hell group 1 and group 2 are even talking about. Like those are the 3 groups that are realtors today. This is probably the time in your business. I'm going to say it. This is probably the time in your business you wake up an hour or 2 earlier than you used to. This is probably the time in your business that when the kids go to bed at night, like that glorious after kid bedtime, AKBT, like that, what you needed was one more acronym, that after that glorious time, you watch your favorite show and then you go out to the kitchen table and you work for another hour. This is probably the time in your business you put in more, not less. This is probably the time in your business that you're trying more things, not less. By the way, you don't have time. Time is not on your side right now. It's a giant oxymoron, the idea that everybody has more time. I read another article last week that talked about all the additional time that the typical American has today, which might very well be true if you have a job. You and I have careers, you and I have businesses. I don't feel like I have more time. I feel like I have less time. And I think if you're going to succeed at the highest possible level, you need to feel that way too. And if you feel that way, then good, just breathe and know that you're doing it right. If you're hearing my words and you're like, I don't know about that, then at least check it. I'm not saying that I have any of the answers. I am saying I'm searching for the answers. And I think that's an important dialogue to have. I think it's more important to ask the question than it is to know the answer. Answers are fine, but seeking is where you make the most amount of money. Seeking is where you become something. So I think you ought to seek. I think you ought to look. Like I've said it for a long time. I believe that you're paid in proportion to the level of questions that you ask. And if you want to make a great big income, then ask great big questions, beginning with myself. Some of the questions I've been asking, this isn't in the slides anywhere, but some of the questions I've been asking, who am I when I come out of this? Whatever coming out of this looks like, who am I? What have I done? What new side hustle have I started? What new side business have I done? What have I done in my main real estate sales business? Like, what have I done? What have I created physically? What have I created emotionally? Who am I spiritually when I come out of this? Like, I don't know about you, but I feel like in my lifetime, this is going to be the one time we all look back at where the pause button just got hit a little bit. But don't you let it stay on pause. It's an interesting time. I saw a meme the other day and it said 2020 may not be the year that you got everything you wanted, but 2020 might be the year that you realized how thankful you were for everything you had. Interesting thought. All right, next. I want you to stop thinking this is quarantine. This isn't quarantine. This kind of goes along with what I started the whole conversation with. This isn't quarantine. This is real life. This isn't quarantine. This is the way things are right now. This is how it looks. This is the way it is. And I don't know that it's changing anytime soon. I mean, and if it does, great, but we don't know what it means. Like, you've got cities and states across the country that are opening in different phases and then wheeling back. Imagine being a politician right now. Imagine being, and no political statement here, but imagine being a governor or a mayor. You're making the biggest decisions of your entire career right now, and you have no idea what the hell to do. No idea. Like a governor, like if I were governor of a state, I'd hop on a Zoom conference and I'd say, hey, everybody, I don't know what to do. Here's a couple of ideas. What do you think? Here's what I think we could do, but I don't know. Like, you think about it, whatever governor is in your state or whatever mayor is in your city, You and her, you and him, you have the same level of experience at this. If you're the praying kind of person, pray for those people, man. Pray for wisdom. Pray for resilience. If you're not the prayer type of person, that's cool too. Send them good, positive energy. That's what I'm doing. Send them good, positive energy every day. Even if you don't like their political stance. Like right now, we're just people trying to figure our way through this. And I think it's a good time to take a breath and realize that the people in your database, they're just people too, trying to figure their way through this. This doesn't look like any other time we've ever dealt with. And it may not look like any other time we ever deal with from here forward. We don't know. We have no idea. And so this has been heavy, heavy on my heart, probably for 40 days, 45 days, where I just kind of quit thinking quarantine. And I started thinking, this is just reality. Like, this is the only reality I have right now. It's the only playbook I can play from. It's the only book I can read right now. This is the way life looks. Whether we've got 4 more months or 8 more months. I was talking to someone the other day and they said, blah, 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 when this is all behind us. I don't know what that means. I have no idea. I don't know when I could be on stage again in front of 200 people or 2,000 people or 10,000 people. I have no idea. Is it going to happen in the next 6 months? Really unlikely. Is it going to happen in the next 12 months? And I don't know. We got no idea. And you don't know either. Like, there's no telling. I was reading an article the other day that said one of the greatest impacts on the market this coming year is when commercial real estate space is at an all-time vacant. Because people say, I don't need the space anymore. We sent our people home to work and we figured out how to do it. It's an interesting thought. Like, what does that mean to our cities? What does that mean to our businesses? I don't know. All right, the next one. This is maybe the most important in the stop list. Stop working the year. For almost 15 years, I've been teaching business planning clinics and business plans. And for the first time in my career, I'm saying, throw it away, get rid of it. Crumple that damn thing up and pitch it in the trash. It probably doesn't matter. Quit working the year. Like, the business plan I walked into this year with for my expansion business, United Home Group, was to sell 2,200 homes. We are not going to sell my group at least is not going to be able to sell 2,200 homes this year. Like, we are scratching and working. We might be able to hit 1,450. We might be able to hit 1,500. That's a really big drop from 2,200. And of course, when we set 2,200, I thought in my mind, probably 19, maybe 2,000. But I want you to take the annual business plan you had and probably pitch it in the trash. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to have a 90-day plan, 90 days. I've been reading a ton during all this time, and one of the books that I think is worth going back to if you've already read it, or if you haven't read it, go pick it up, is Traction by Gino Wickman. And in Traction, he talks about, in fact, I'll give it to you. I earmarked it for you this morning. On page number 177, he's talking about meetings. But he talks about the 90-day world. And I think that would be a good adaptation from a 90-day world to a 90-day business plan. What does the world of your business look like for the next 90 days? But everything's in pencil right now. And what I mean by that is you can't be married to anything right now. You can't be so dead set that this is how it works. You see, before COVID, I would have said, listen, if you want to make X amount of money, do these 8 things, these 8 ways, and do them this many days in a row, and you're going to have X, Y, Z in your business. We can't say that right now. It's a giant guessing game, which also means that there's more pressure today on tracking your performance than there's ever been. There's more pressure today on tracking what you do than there's ever been, because you're completely figuring things out. Everything is different. Everything is not the same. Quit working the year. I want you to go build a 90-day plan. Then when you get a 90-day plan, build that thing down to 30 days. And then as fast as you can, get it down to what do I have to do today? Here's how I'm looking at my days right now. I'm waking up the way you are. I'm grabbing my phone. By the way, I'm up earlier than I've ever been. I'm grabbing my phone and running. At the end of the day, I'm on my phone in my bed, running as fast as I can. I'm tired right now. And if you're exhausted right now, welcome. You're probably doing it right. If you're tired right now and you're wondering, is this working? Is it not working? What do I do in a week? You're probably doing it right. You don't have time to wait. I'm going to give you some ideas today on the start list, and I'm going to give you some ideas at the very, very end. The 10 lead gen levers in the order I think you should put them in right now in your business. You don't have time. You don't have 10 days to research it. You don't have 2 weeks to talk to 10 agents that are doing it well. You don't have the time to go and wait for a cool Zoom webinar to pop up and learn how to do it. You only have time to implement right now. There's an old saying that fortune favors the bold. That is the most true during a time like this. Man, you got to move. And what I mean by that is put something into practice today. Be willing to take it off tomorrow. This is when you just try everything. By the way, there's a book talks about how 80% of plans work. The 20% that don't, you turn them into education anyway. Most of the things that you do right now will work. I don't know if most of the things you do right now are going to be working in 6 months or 2 years. I've got no idea. We are living in a altruistic environment right now. Like in most parts of the country, you have incredible shortage of inventory. But do you have incredible shortage of inventory because of a high number of sales? Or do you have incredible shortage of inventory because people don't want to sell if they don't have to? I don't know. It probably looks a little different in every market. You got macro markets and micro markets. At the end of the day, this is what I mean by don't worry too much about the market. Your only market is the person you could talk to right now that you weren't talking to a minute ago. That's the market that you actually live in. And let that be the pressure in your business. Because one of the things that happens is you've probably already had, and if not, you're going to have to increase the amount of time you put in. Like lead gen, if you were lead generating for 2 hours a day, maybe you're lead generating for 4 or 5 hours a day. Welcome to the club. Maybe you're having to jump twice as hard to get half the result. Welcome to the club. I don't think it's a bad thing. And I think you're going to learn through it. By the way, what you learn right now, you're never going to have to give it away. The things that you learn in your business, the things you put, I mean, I'm convinced that we're going to be sitting at a national real estate conference. Maybe it's going to be in 2 years. I don't know. It will definitely not be this year. You and I are not going to any conferences of 5 or 10 or 30,000 people. Not going to happen this year. So maybe next year, maybe the year after, I don't know. But we're going to be sitting there at some point. And someone's going to be interviewing somebody who's killed it in their business. And she's going to say, you know what, during COVID, I tried this and this, and it worked so amazingly, I never went back. And I'm selling 500 homes a year because of it. That's who I need you to be. Those are the shots I want you to start taking. And you know, there's nothing wrong with looking at what's always worked. Trust me, in my real estate sales business, I'm looking at all the things that have always worked. There's also absolutely nothing wrong with saying, you know what, if there was a time to try something different, I'm living it. This is it right now. On one hand, what's the tried and true stuff that's always produced? On the other hand, in 10 years, what are we going to say is tried and true and always worked? Because that's a subjective thought. Quit working the year. You need a 90-day plan and that's it. All right, quit drinking and eating so much. I'm just going to say it. Maybe you're different than me here. So maybe I'm just talking about myself. But since March, I've drank more. Like I found myself, this was probably, I don't know, it's probably 2 months ago. It was like 2 in the afternoon. I'd wrapped up a bunch of webinars for the day. I was exhausted. I went upstairs and I poured a glass of wine at like 2. And I remember I set the glass down and I like stood back and I went, wow, that's not me. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That is not me. And I remember seeing like a funny meme, right? It was like, what was it? It said, quarantine is like airport rules. It's okay to drink at 10 in the morning. And I get it. Like I see the humor in it. I laugh. Like I'm fine with it. But be careful with who you're becoming right now. I don't think that you're choosing who you are right now. I believe, and I want you to write this down, I believe you're choosing your habits right now. And your habits are going to uncover who you become. I don't think I get to choose who I become. I choose my habits, and my habits uncover what that becomes or who I become. But I've been eating more at home. Like, I mean, I'm home all the time. Like all the jokes about the snacky snacks throughout the entire day. Yeah, like I've been eating and drinking more than I would have before. And I think it's important just to stop and go, okay, is this who I want to be right now? Is this truly what I want? And maybe for some of you, you hear that and you go, yeah, I got no struggle with that, Cody. It's just you. Cool. Screw you. For the rest of you, though, that hear me and you're like, dude, I am with you. The greatest news about it is that you're one decision away from anything looking different all the time. And we have this idea that all the cool ideas are taken. We have this idea that all the cool things have already been done. Though we live on planet Earth where every single second, everything is new again. Every single second, everything is different. I want you to think for a second. Think of this thought. Right now in your life, you know the most you've ever known. You have the most wisdom right now, the most knowledge in your entire life. And at the exact same time, here's the paradox. At the exact same time, you know the least amount you're ever going to know. What an interesting thought. Like this second, I know more than I've ever known. And also in this second, so I'll say it the way that I believe it. In this moment, I'm the smartest I've ever been. And in this moment, I'm the dumbest I'll ever be. Interesting paradox to it. I put this in here because we live human being lives. Yeah, we're businesses. Yeah, you can double your business. Yeah, you can triple your business. Yeah, you can make all the money that you want to make. But this is important. This is one of those that you just stop and you check yourself and you go, who am I being right now? Stop worrying about how you sound or look. If there's one of the greatest benefits of what COVID has brought to us is the idea for real estate agents to be more mobile, the idea for real estate agents to be on camera more, the idea for real estate agents to be online more. And here's the deal. Someone says, I don't like the way I look online. Here's the deal, Scooter. You don't look any better in person. Like that's what you got. That's who you are. Like I've joked for a long time that my mom used to tell me, I've got a face for radio. Like I have a face for radio. It's like, this is what I got. If you don't like how you look online, you don't look any better in person. If you don't like how you sound online, you don't sound any better in person. And by the way, you don't need to spend $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 some crazy studio. You don't have to go do that. You can spend $50 on a good light. You can spend $50 on a good microphone. You could do a couple of things. You could spend $100 on an amazing tripod. For a couple $100, you could look fantastic online. Here's what does need to happen. And I'm talking to all my friends that are real estate agents. If you are still doing Zooms and you're still doing stuff like this on either your iPad or laptop or on your phone, and this is how you look to people, you need to level the hell up. It's time for you to get a little better at this. It's time for you to at least get it up here. It's time for you to at least have a decent light. It's time for you to have, and I'm going to say it like this. I can't see any of you right now anyway. All I see is a screen with my own slides. So I can't see how you look. But if that's how you are, it's time for you to move forward. It's time for you to quit playing small. Spend a couple $100 on some good lighting. Have some self-respect for who you're talking to. Just own that. You can get better at this. You're going to have to get better at this. By the way, the people that are going to be taking your business from you are already getting better at this. And guess what? Nobody gives a damn if you like it or not. Nobody cares if you want to do stuff online. Poof, you're going to be. Nobody cares if you want to do your next how to buy a home during COVID, how to buy a home during COVID as a webinar. Nobody cares if you want to or not. That's probably the way you're going to be doing it. Nobody cares if the next class you teach, which everybody should be doing this. I'll cover this at the last 5 or 10 minutes. You could do, well, I'll cover it the last 5 or 10 minutes. Quit worrying about how you sound or look. It's what you got, so use it. And by the way, I believe if you're here, you can do it just right. All right, next, quit looking for a sale. You know what? Poor agents look for a sale. They look for a sale. You know what rich agents look for? We look for repeatable patterns. Those are two different things. I was on stage once with this incredible agent. At the time, my group was selling about 1,000 homes a year, and their group was selling about 3,000 homes a year. Awesome, right? Like that's incredible business. No matter how you slice it, that's rad. We came off stage and we were standing there, and somebody walked up and said hi to us and immediately like turned their back towards me because they were wanting to ask this guy some questions. At 3,000 sales a year, I don't blame them. But here's what they did, and I need you to hear the story. They said blah, 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 and they asked about a seller that they had, and they said, what could I do to move this seller off the fence? If I remember correctly, it was a big luxury sale in their market of about $1 million or $1.5 million or whatever, and they couldn't get the person to come down in price, even though they've told them 100 times and done 100 open houses and blah, all the stuff, right? All the stuff. And this guy was so gracious. He said, well, you could try this and try this and try this, and you could ask these 3 questions and try this script. And the person said, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And so kind. And as they walked away, that agent looked at me and he said, this was impactful to me, looked at me and said, too bad that might be the only sale that person ever has. And I went, what do you mean? And he said, think about it, Cody. We just came off stage. Between the 2 of us, we sell 4,000 homes a year. That person walked up and only had a minute with us and asked, how do I get this one sale to work? When what they should have asked was, where do I find 50 more listings this year? Do you see the difference? You see, what you ask for is what you're going to get. There's an old idea. It was kind of one of the fathers or mothers, if you will, to the idea of modern day positive thinking. And the idea was what you're seeking is already seeking you. And so if you're seeking a sale is seeking you. I'm never seeking a sale. I'm seeking a repeatable pattern of business that I could run over and over and over and over again. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And hopefully it's just one of those little things that you go, no, I'm not looking for a listing. I'm looking for a repeatable pattern for 15 listings this year. I'm looking for a repeatable pattern of 25 new buyers this year, not a new buyer right now. If you get what you're looking for, be careful what you ask. So quit looking for a sale, look for a business. Quit waiting for the perfect idea. In lieu of the perfect idea, every idea works. And I think you need to stop right now and think, all right, what do I have that I could put in play? Maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not, but maybe it's better than doing nothing. Quit waiting for the perfect idea. We don't even know what the hell they look like right now. We don't know. I'm doing some things today that I would have told you I would never do. And I'm not doing some things that I would tell you I would have never stopped. And yet here we are. So quit waiting for a perfect idea. In the absence of perfect, everything is good. So just run it. Run as many plays as you can right now. In your business, this would be the first time in my speaking career that I would say, you know what you ought to be doing is about 8 or 10 different things right now. Not 1 or 2, like probably 8 or 10 different things, because we're not sure what's going to hit. We're not certain what's going to land in your market. We're not certain how the market's going to respond to you. So right now, this is when you're going to have to spin some plates. Right now is when you're going to have to be willing to look and go, all right, I got these 8 or 10 things going right now. Who do I have to be to keep these 8 or 10 things going? Be real careful about that myopic outlook. Don't worry about the perfect idea. Any idea will probably work today. All right, stop attending every Zoom training when you're not implementing anything anyway. Be careful with this one, man. And I thought about it like, I mean, I'll be honest. I'm honest anyway. I was looking through the list of some people that have signed up for today's webinar, and I saw a couple of names that I've probably seen on every one of the webinars I've done since COVID began. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So-and-so is going to be here. And then I thought, well, hang on a second. Has so-and-so even implemented what we talked about last time, or the time before, or the time before? And if you think about like prior to COVID, there's always that person in your real estate company, right, who goes to every single class. They don't do anything, but they go to every class. Every time there's a FSBO class, I'm there, baby. I'm in it. I'm not calling those FSBOs, but I'm coming to the class. Every time there's an open house class, I'm on it. I don't sit opens, but I'm on it. Just be careful with it. Quit going to things that you don't want to do. And sometimes what we do is we'll sign up for something or we'll go to something. That person at the real estate office who goes to every single class, sometimes all they're doing is a mental gymnastics with themselves of making themselves feel like they did something that day. You know what? Be careful with that. This isn't, I mean, there's an old conversation that Gary Keller used to have of, are you in this? Are you learning for knowing's sake, or are you learning for doing's sake? If you're learning for doing's sake, then you'll find money from it. If you're learning to knowing's sake, well, then you might just be great at trivial pursuits. Think about that. That's an adaptation of what we used to teach in the 6 personal perspectives. So be careful what you go to. Quit worrying about politics. Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. As a human being, I'm totally cool if you're interested in politics. Go ahead. I think it's fascinating. Fascinating. As a business, my business can't be interested. My business can't be looking at it. Someone said the other day, they said, blah, 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 blah. COVID isn't even real and it will go away after November the 4th. Okay, I got no idea. If that's the case, cool. I'm looking forward to that on November 5th. But if that's not the case, I don't get to control it anyway. So just be careful about this. Be careful where you put your time. All right, stop being polarizing online. I called somebody out the other day, a good friend of mine, and they were on Facebook and they were ranting about something. And I picked up the phone and called them, and I just said, I love you, and can I just speak into your life for a minute? They said, yeah, of course, always. And I said, cool, you're being a jerk online. And half the people who read your stuff are looking at it going, what a jerk you are. And the other half are saying, I guess I agree with you, but you're still a jerk. Be careful with this. Like, yes, you and I chose a solopreneur business. And I think if anything right now, it's not the time for us to be polarizing. It's the time for us to be unified. It's the time for us. I mean, I'm being really careful about what I post. And this is just my opinion. You can do what you want. But in my opinion, if it doesn't help everybody, I'm not saying it. If half the people are going to disagree with me, I'm not sure I'm willing to say it right now. My job right now is not to divide. My job right now is just to bring as many people together for something as I possibly can. Stop thinking the market is great. The reason I put this here, this is the last of the stop slides, which is where we spend more time. Stop thinking the market is great. I don't know if it is, and I don't know if it isn't. And I also don't know how long it lasts. We're less than 2 weeks from the federal subsidized unemployment stopping, and that could have a tremendous impact on our economy. I got no idea. I don't know. Earnings for this last quarter are coming out on Wall Street. Wall Street's waiting on pins and needles to see how much money these big companies have been losing. It's an interesting time. I don't know. Is the market great? Don't know. It's the only market that I have. This is why it's so important for me. If I go down the road of saying the market is great, I've got 1.2 months inventory, like it's super fast. Are those things true? In a lot of markets, yes. Got multiple offers on most listings. Is that true? In a lot of markets, yes. But the challenge is if I go down the road of saying this market is great, then what am I going to say when the market is dramatically different again? Well, all I have is the antithesis. This market is terrible, or this market is slow. As a real estate agent, I have to be willing to look down and say every market is great because it's the only one I've got. And be careful with what we think right now. Everything could change on a dime. We realize really fast, anybody who's lived through massive economic recessions, and we're on the front end, the rich people, by and large, think that we're on the front end of the greatest recession of time since the 1920s. Potentially as big as that. That's what a lot of rich people are saying. And by the way, if you're going to talk about economy, be careful who you listen to. Who's got a better outlook on it, the rich or the poor? Interesting thought, right? No judgment, just be careful who you listen to. So stop thinking the market is great. Instead, the market is what it is. And when it changes, the market is what it is that day too. And when we go back to longer lead times, what happens when we go back to 2 and 3 month marketing times on most homes? I've worked and lived through a market like that. Some of you have worked and lived through a market like that. And we get really, really short memories. We get amnesia about how hard those things are, right? All right, here's the start list. And we cruise through these. Start doing these 16 things now. Start asking, where's my opportunity? Where is it right now? I'm real big on writing. I post-it notes and cards and stuff all over the place. And I've got this big sheet of paper next to my bed that I see every single morning and every single night. And it says, where's my opportunity now? And again, you're paid in proportion to the questions you ask. Be open for the universe to give you an answer, but begin asking, where's my opportunity right now? And you got to give up on what you thought the opportunity was. Man, there's some things I thought I'd be doing by July and August of this year in my business that have not happened by July and August of this year. And they've been set so far back on the burner. I don't know if they'll happen next July or August. I don't know if they'll ever happen. And to a degree, it's almost like, what was the old Mike Tyson quote? Everybody has an amazing plan until they get punched in the mouth. Well, our industry is being punched in the mouth right now. And our economy is about to be punched in the mouth. And if we're wrong about that, and that's not what happens, then great. But if it is what happens, you'll be ready for it. Start owning it all. This goes back to knowing that everything is on you. Own the good, own the bad, own everything in between. You're the only person that you have any control over anyway, which is really hard for people like you and I. Like you and I are probably controllers, right? Like we're controlling type people. We're the type of people that say, I'm going to get this person to do this and this person to do that. And I'm going to get everything to work in the way I need it to work. And at some level, you have to step back and just say, I just control this. This is all that I have any control over anyway. What I do with my time. And the old idea of time management, right? Like we don't get to manage time. We get to manage ourselves within the bounds of time. And my time management has been put to an absolute test during COVID. And I'll bet yours has too. Own it all. Start trying something new every day. Take some risk. Ask yourself this, if you're on this webinar, ask yourself, when's the last time I did something for the first time? When's the last time I tried something completely new, completely different? Just get that heart moving. That's the physical stuff. But in your business, what could I do right now that I've never done? Try something new. The greatest thing about right now is that everything is short. Like you could try something online and if it doesn't work, nobody cared anyway. And in 7 days, no one's looking at it. Like you could take some massive risks right now. And the news cycle moves so fast, it doesn't even matter. I need you to be trying something new. Try something new every day. Put a note up on your bathroom mirror that says, do something new today and run that play for 30 days. Just for 30 days. I promise you at the end of the month, some of those things you're going to keep doing and some of those things you're going to laugh and go, what a crazy idea that was. But I need you to be incredibly uncomfortable because the entire world around you is uncomfortable. I need you to be uncomfortable. This is not the time that we go back to the 8 or 10 things that have always worked in real estate and we just hit those 8 or 10 things over and over and over. This isn't the time for that. I need you to be pushing. I want you to start using the I have a buyer or I have a seller post. We don't have time to go into it in depth right now. We will at another. In fact, I'm going to invite everybody on here to another webinar next week on Thursday. And I'll tell you at the end, like what time, and I'll tell you how to get into it. That one will have a barrier of entry. It'll still be free, but it'll have a barrier of entry. But anyway, start using the I have a buyer and I have a seller posts. If you haven't heard it, go to YouTube and type in 7 steps to 10 listings. It's still up. I checked this morning. There's a 50-minute presentation of me giving this at the Keller Williams event a few years ago. I think it was 2017 or 2018. But we talked about the I have a buyer post. We talked about using it on Facebook. It's fantastic. It works. We're still using it today. It still works today. Though what we do is we now do the I have a seller post as well. And I'll tell you in that, and I'll tell you next Thursday as well, like the best time to do it, the best way to do it. Next Thursday, I'll bring some slides and I'll say, do it like this, don't do it like that. I'll give you some more stuff, but start doing those if you haven't already done them. All right, start making contacts regardless of income. In the old days, before COVID, I would say you need to know these 10 things and do these 10 things over and over and over again. And here's how the contacts work. We don't know right now. We're contacting people that would have been buyers and sellers that aren't anymore. And we're contacting people that were probably not going to be buyers and sellers who are right now. So I need you to some degree be unattached to the outcome. And I just need you at some level of your business to look at it as a contact sport. And at the end of the day, whoever's got the most number of contacts is ultimately going to win. This is going to be a little bit, if you're taking notes, overkill over time. Because we don't know. This isn't the time to be hyper-focused. This isn't the time to be with your database, at least, to be a sniper rifle. Right now, it's probably a shotgun approach. Right now, it's probably throwing a lot against the wall and hoping something sticks. Because we don't know. We just don't know. We don't know what's working because nobody, I mean, at best, like I got some friends who are killing it during COVID, but at best they have 8 or 10 or 12 weeks of experience at it. We don't have 8 or 10 or 12 years. We don't have empirical data. All we have is what's working right now, this second. If you were making 20 contacts a day, it's probably time to go to 40. If you were making 10 contacts a day, it's probably time to go to 20 or 30. No matter what, it's probably time to increase the number. And then you figure it out. And I want you to look at it like this. There's an old saying that you can't lighten a load until you've been willing to feel the burden of it. I need you to make more contacts. I need you to almost choke your business on a number of contacts. This is going to be the time in your business that you need to. This isn't the time in your business that you make less and you make them quality. This is the time that you make them more and you make them quality. By the way, that's tough. That's a tough ask, but it's the appropriate one. That's a tough request, but it's the one that your business needs right now. So own it. Start tracking your performance. There's never been a time than right now that's more important to know what you're doing and when you're doing it, what works and what doesn't. Tracking, like you think back in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, where Gary wrote about the 8 goal categories of an agent. Like right now, it's never been more important than right now to know what you're doing and what was the result. There's an old saying that if you can't track it, you can't improve it. If you can't count it and quantify it, then you can't change it. This is the time that we got to count everything. Now, what I'd love to ask you to do, and full disclosure, I own the company. I'd love for you to go and check out Hippo Pulse. It's an app, and it took me 4 years to get it to the market. I went broke twice. The business went broke twice getting it to the market. It was a pain in the ass. Like I thought building an app was going to be not that big of a deal. It turned out to be an amazingly difficult deal. But if you've ever used an app like MyFitnessPal, like a nutrition tracking app, where you track your calories and you track your workouts and you track your time and your water and all those things, and you track it against usually weight loss would be most people. Some use it for weight gain, but not many. Hippo Pulse looks like that. Only it's a tracking app for real estate agents. How many contacts, how many appointments you set versus how many you've gone on, versus how many you've signed, so you can track your conversion rates, so you can improve them. But go and check it out. You can go to the App Store for iOS, go to check out Hippo Pulse. It's less than $5 a month. There's a 2-week free trial, less than $5 a month. If you use Android, you can go to the Android store and pick it up. My only request would be that if you start using it, and you see something that I could do better with it, send me a message, send me an email. I'm easy to find, Cody Gibson at kw.com. Send me an email and say, hey, have you ever thought of doing this? Or this would be an amazing addition to it. Trust me, every 21 days, we're making revisions to Hippo Pulse, the real estate agent activity tracking app. That's a mouthful, by the way. Every 21 days, we're making revisions. Trust me, I want to see your input. This thing was built by an agent for agents. Like I built it, I know what it needs, what it needs, but I don't know everything that it needs. By the way, if you're going to come to the webinar next week, I'm going to take you deeper into those 10 levers. I'm going to give them to you today, but next week on Thursday the 6th, we just don't have 2 hours today. We only have about an hour. I'm going to take you through those lead gen levers at a deeper level and show you on each and every one of them what you could do, what play to make right now, and some scripts to go with each one. And the only request that I have to get into that webinar, while the webinar is free, my only request is that you download Hippo Pulse. And so what you would do is you would download Hippo Pulse, you'd buy it, send me a screenshot. Just take a screenshot on your phone. We'll keep it simple. You can email it to codygibson at kw.com. So that's the hook. Like the hook would be, I need you to buy my app. And if you buy my app, I'll invite you to the webinar and I'll show you how to do those things. If that works for you, awesome. By the way, if you really want to come and you hate the app, send me a message. I'm sure we'll get you in one way or the other. I want to give back. I want to help you. All right, so next would be this. Start earning referrals strategically and not accidentally. This is not the time in your business for that Tuesday afternoon call of someone says, hey, Bob said you were a great agent and you're awesome. I should work with you. That's fine, but this is where it has to be strategic giving. A great book for you to go read right now is called Give and Take. And I always forget if it's Adam Grant or Andy Grant, but it's a guy on the front, there's a rope. And the idea is giving strategically. The reason this is so important is that right now it's never been more important than today to be human and humanistic to the people in your database and the people in your city and the people that you want in your database, which means there's a strategic giving. What could I give that I take in return? This is a really, really big deal. Now, next week on the webinar on Thursday, I'm going to show you a Facebook group that 2 of my friends have built that are absolutely strategic giving. Give and take, give and take. So you got to start earning referrals strategically. If I do these 4 things, how do I earn one? And by the way, as strategic as we become, look at me right now, as strategic as we become, nothing replaces the ask. Nothing replaces just asking the question, who do you know that needs my help right now? Nothing replaces that. I'll give you some cool strategies and some cool ideas and tips and tricks and some scripts around it, but nothing's going to replace looking somebody right in the eye, or at least talking on the phone or texting them and saying, who do you know that I could help right now? Nothing will ever beat that. You just have to run it again and again and again. All right. Next would be start looking for repeatable success. There's an old thing that I was taught a long time ago as it relates to people. And maybe it'll work for you. It won't be on the screen. So if you like it, you have to write it down. I rarely trust people's words. Like I don't. Like people could say anything. Ever had someone tell you something that you know wasn't true? Of course. I rarely trust people's actions. The reason is anybody could take an action for a short period of time. Anybody could say, I'm going to get in shape. And they can go to the gym every day at 6 a.m. for a week or for 2 weeks. Are they still doing it in 6 months? Are they still doing it in 2 years? You know what I'm talking about. So I rarely trust people's actions. You know what I always trust? Patterns. How people show up. I'll bet if you're like me, there's people in your life that you've believed their words and that was a mistake. You've trusted their actions and that was a mistake. And when the pattern repeatedly showed up again and again and again, you went, you know what? Damn it, I can trust that. Like I believe that. That's a pattern that shows up. Now in my real estate business, the same thing happens. The same thing is true. I look for repeatable patterns. What could I do that by such doing it, it's a conveyor belt of opportunity. It's a conveyor belt of leads. My business does not need a sale. My business needs a repeatable opportunity. That's what the business needs. And I think one of the greatest disservices that our industry's done for us as real estate agents is talk about a sale, talk about a listing. Because the truth is, you're not going to retire on that listing anyway. You're not going to retire on that sale anyway, unless it's huge, right? You're not going to do that. And so you don't need it. What you actually need is you need a conveyor belt of repeatable outcome. You need a conveyor belt of repeatable opportunity. And if you have repeatable opportunity, you're always going to hit some out of the park. I think about it like this. I don't think about it like finding a sale. I think about it like standing at a batting cage. And my job is to get the batting cage to work. And by work, here's what I mean. Here's a trip inside my mind. My job is to figure out how to get the batting cage to where that little machine that throws the ball to me is always going to throw the next one. Guarantee you I'm going to miss some. If you've ever seen me play softball, you know I'm going to miss some. Guaranteed I'm going to miss some, but guaranteed I'm going to hit some. And guaranteed I'm going to hit some really, really well. My job is to make sure the next ball comes flying out of that thing. That's my only job, not to go figure out one sale. And I hope that makes sense. Start a group on social media. I'll go deeper on this next week, Thursday the 6th. It'll be 9 a.m. Pacific time. And all you got to do is send me an email that you've downloaded Hippo Pulse. You can send me a screenshot of it, or just tell me that you bought it. I trust you. I'm cool with it. And what we'll do is we'll send you a login for it. We're not trying to lock anybody out, but there are going to be some things I talk about next Thursday that if you don't have Hippo Pulse, it might not help you. So start a group on social media. Here's what I know is this. Facebook will tell you that Facebook usage is up 250+% since before COVID, which to you and I spells opportunity. If you haven't started a hyper local group, that's a mistake. Like my friend Martin Inman, I'll tell you his story next Thursday if you haven't already heard it. If you've been on webinars with me, you've heard it, but I'll tell you the most current version of it. Started a supper club, right? So do something local. Another friend of mine started a Facebook group around a no-kill animal shelter. Another one of my friends has started a Facebook group. You got to hear me on this. Started a Facebook group. Imagine how difficult it is right now to find nannies in your city, or to find childcare help in your city. There's schools that are saying we're not going to go back to school the way you know it. There's other schools that are saying it's going to be distance only. There's other schools that are saying half and half, and there's parents all over saying, what the hell do I do? Maybe in your city, what you do is you start a Facebook group for moms and dads and families to connect. Maybe if you're passionate about it, you start a Facebook group that's all about creating little groups of kids in certain age groups to say, listen, on this day, they're going to meet here. On this day, and you don't have to do all the work. You might just be the conduit. You might just be the person that clicks it all together. Remember the way, and it was Jason Abrams who said this, the way that you beat the internet is you become more human. And there's no better time than right now to become more human to your people. You're going to be judged in your business right now by how much you could give right now. You're going to be judged in your business. And it was Abe Shreve who said this. He said, who people are hearing from today is going to decide, and it's going to dictate who they listen to tomorrow. And of course, for you and me, listening tomorrow means working with us in real estate, but they have to be hearing from us today. This is the time to start groups on social media. Everybody on this webinar should go and start a group on social media. Don't think about it. Don't wait for a week. Don't think, which one would I do? Just pick one and start it. The worst thing that happens is you learn something that you didn't know. And a week from now, you have 2 other groups that you've started. The coolest thing about it is that if the group doesn't work, here's the news flash, Scooter. If the group doesn't work, nobody was in it to see it not work anyway. So you don't even look bad. Doesn't matter. Start winning at something. You know, during COVID, one of the things I've had to do is I've had to wheel back to the point where I could win at little things. And this won't be on the screen, so I think you have to write it down. This is the time for micro commitments, not giant commitments. This is the time to run sprints and not marathons. You're a sprinter. I need you to run for 10 minutes. I need you to run for an hour. I need you to run for 30 minutes. This is not the time that you say, you know what? I'm going to run this play for the next 14 months. I got no idea what 14 months from now looks like. If 28 million homes, or if 28 million Americans last month didn't pay their rent and didn't pay their mortgage payment, I don't know what 100 days from now looks like. It's gargantuan. Now, last month is probably the 3rd and maybe final month for most people that did a loan forbearance, which is a whole nother conversation. Which means some of those 28 million households just did a loan forbearance. What you and I don't know is, did they need the loan forbearance or did they take the loan forbearance? Those are 2 different things. But what I do know is this, something's going to shake out on the other end of this. And it's going to be in 100 days or 120 days. You and I could mark it on our calendars. We're going to see it. So let me get back to my point. Start winning at something. You know, I believe that winning is a habit. I believe that losing is a habit. That's why I think that sometimes you see the same sports teams show up in the playoffs, like in the NFL, you see some of the same teams year after year after year after year in the NFL because they expect to be there. There's always a few outliers. There's always a few dark horses that show up, like in a wild card game, or maybe they make it and then for 4 seasons they don't. But there's a handful of teams that you could say on season 1 of NFL, which I don't even know what that looks like this year, but you could say on week 1 of the season, they're probably going to be in the playoffs this year. Because guess what? They've been in the playoffs for 9 out of 10. Pretty good bet. I say that to say this: winning's a habit. And I think you ought to give yourself some easy ones. Give yourself some easy things you could win at today. And one of them, might be, I'm going to eat the right number of calories today, or I'm going to drink the right amount of water today. Get it out of the business for a minute. I believe that what we do is a repeatable process, and that's what creates success. So find something you win at. And it's easier to win when you're already winning. Do you know how hard it is to win when you're losing at everything? You get those days that you're like, man, this just feels like everything's against me. Then you've got those days that you're like, everything is for me. I'm hitting every green light. Everything is awesome. Everything wins. I feel great about it. You may have to tee up some easy wins for yourself. Don't be embarrassed by it. Just tee them up. Start a data bank that matters. There is no more important time than today to add 2 people to your data bank. And if you think about a data bank, of course, what you put in is what you get out someday. And if you add 2 people today, you probably won't have a much bigger or different business tomorrow. But don't underestimate the power of 100 days. Go and build that 100-day business plan, that 90-day vision, if you will. And in 90 days, if you added 2 people a day for 90 days, that's 180. I can do really good math. That's 180 people. Your business could look wildly different in 100 days. It could look gargantuanly, I don't even know if that's a word, gargantuanly business in 365 days. Or it could look the same. You're either going to be glad you did or wished you had. If you've been hanging out in real estate for a long time like I have been, and if you've been thinking, I got to fix my database, and you don't choose to fix it during COVID, you might as well just quit freaking telling yourself a lie that you care about it. You don't give a damn about it. You're probably never going to do it. That's the truth. You've got more time right now than you've had before. This is where you pour it into the database. And it doesn't need to be amazing. It just needs to be. The greatest thing about a database is all you have to do is make it bigger every day. Sooner or later, you're going to fix it. Sooner or later, you're going to clean it. Sooner or later, you're going to make it better. My friends over at Likely AI are working on right now an opportunity that you could take in fact, if you want to be on the mailing list for this, send me an email, Cody Gibson at KW. They're not ready yet, but we're very close at likely.ai, which is a great company. If you haven't talked with them about getting artificial intelligence in your market, it's a smart play. We use them in the 96 markets that we're in, at least the markets that they can service. And they can service about 80% of the markets in America. But Likely AI is really close. If you want to be on the list, send me an email and just tell me database list, and I'll help you with this. But they're really close to where you can send them your database, like 400 people, 200 people, 1,000 people, and they'll run it through their artificial intelligence scrubber, and they're going to send it back cleaner. Like they're going to clean up some of the addresses that you're not even sure have changed or moved or names, and they're going to send it back. If you sent them a list of 200, they're going to send you back 1 through 200, most likely to move or make a move in the next 12 months to least likely. That's the benefit of AI, artificial intelligence. We're very, very close. We've been beta testing it the last couple of weeks. If you want to be on that mailing list, just let me know and just say Likely database or whatever, Cody Gibson at KW. I'll put you on the list and I'll tell you as soon as they're ready to do it. But a data bank that matters right now matters more than it's ever mattered. Add 2 people a day. It's worth saying twice. You can add 2 today. You could probably add 2 tomorrow. Don't worry about 2 100 days from now, just 2 a day, 2 a day. And you run that play again and again and again and again. I know it sounds stupid. I know it sounds simple. And the greatest opportunities in life come from the stupid, simple things, running them over and over and over again. No matter what you do in your business, what you're going to need is more people that know that you're a real estate agent. That's a fact. That never's changed. If you need to get data, and data is a big deal right now, we wheeled back our expenses by 70 grand a month when COVID hit. We had to, right? And you probably did too. But there's probably a handful of things that we're spending more money on today because it matters. Like we came out during COVID and said, now is the time to survive, which was true. But this is no longer survival time. This is now time to thrive. Like you have to, because this is the new norm. It's the only norm that we have. So it's the only norm worth talking about. It's the only life that we know worth talking about because it's the one that we're living today. So my friends over at Land Voice, I don't make any money from this, but I told them if I'm going to promote them, they got to give you a discount. So if you want data, Land Voice has FSBOs, expireds. Their old expireds are golden, which is one of the 10 opportunities right now, the old expireds. You can also do geographic searches, because one of the big plays right now is back to geographic farming and sociographic farming. Stay away from schizophrenic farming. It's never worked out very well, but go to landvoice.com /Cody. There's a code for take 127. And what they're going to do is they're going to give you a smoking deal, the best deal they've ever given for a quarter. And then you can go from there. But if you're going to buy data from them, like I've done my own and I've bought from all the bigs, LandVoice is who we use in 96 cities. I don't know who to tell you to use, who I pay. Like that's the best advice I can give. So check him out. My man Christoph there will take really good care of you. Check him out if that's interesting to you. You got to find somewhere. By the way, the geographic search, you could pop address and then draw a box around it, and they can do a data search for names and cell phone numbers. It's a big deal. All right, finding where you add value now. One of the greatest things about COVID is that you've got to take the opportunity to add value somewhere. And you might not even know where that is, or it might surprise you. This might be the time that you look down and say, this has always been important to me, and I'm going to go and do it. Remember to pick up that book, Give and Take. This will help you with this. But where you can add value, jump in and add it. Jump in and do it. My man Martin Inman, what he did was he created that Facebook group, the Supper Club, and I'll go into detail on it next Thursday, and I'll show you how to do it. But he started adding value. And now he has almost 2,000 people in that Facebook group in just 9 weeks, maybe 10 weeks now. In 9 or 10 weeks, he's gone to 2,000 people. That's a database. How long does it take for a realtor to get to 2,000 people in a database? It takes for most forever because they don't get there. He's done it in 9 or 10 weeks. There's so many opportunities that exist today that didn't exist before COVID. And you've got some plans and plays that don't work outside of COVID. They didn't work before and they might not work after, which is why I keep saying you don't have any time. You have to do something right now. Pick something that you care about and lead generate like hell around it. I'll go deeper on Thursday with this. Start doing more online pay-per-click. AdWords, I'll be really, really transparent with you. AdWords are producing for my company at the rate of almost twice as well as they were prior to COVID. And the only reason I think they are is because there's just more people doing searches. Like I'm not the smartest guy out there. Many of you know my personal story. I made it all the way through the 9th grade to never return back to high school. So I am certainly not the smartest book smart guy, but I do know this. I know that during COVID, there's more people on the internet machine. During COVID, there's more people on the Googleator. I do know that. And so because there's more people, my online leads, my AdWords have been producing. And what I mean by that is I'm getting more leads for less dollars per lead. If you're going to play around with the idea of internet lead generation, there's only a couple of words you need to know. Like a lot of people make it more complicated than it is. It's AdWords, it's PPC, pay per click. You're going to pay money every time someone clicks it, which if you really don't like me, go into the markets that I sell homes, find my ads and click on them. Because every time you click, you cost me money. You jerk, quit doing that. But that'd be a fun thing to do to somebody else. Don't do it to me. But online pay-per-click, you got PPC, pay-per-click. Then you got CPL, cost per lead. By the time I get a lead, that's like a bona fide lead. What did I pay for that lead? $6, $8, $14, $2? All of a sudden, our internet lead generation right now is through the roof. I don't know if it will be after COVID, but there's just more people online right now. So of course, now the challenge is there's always been like a really high barrier of entry to do internet lead generation. Like if you didn't want to spend $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month, you were basically barred. You were basically blocked out. You couldn't do it. Or you could do your own Facebook marketing or Facebook ads, which is smart. The problem is as soon as you're busy, you quit doing them. As soon as you have 2 or 3 sales, the last thing you do is sit down and build out your Facebook ads for the next week. I totally get it. Like I've lived that life too. We created a company called Swift Hippo. I'd be honored if you checked it out. If we can help you with this, my whole goal behind Swift Hippo was how to create a internet lead generation source specific to sellers. Not that buyers are wrong by any means. I love buyers. I got to have lots of them. But I wanted something that was specific to sellers. So we created Swift Hippo. You can check that out on swifthippo.com. If you use my name, the company will give you no fee to get started. It's month to month. We're not asking anybody to sign up for 12 months, but we wanted the barrier of entry to be really, really low. So starting at $300 a month, you could play with the business of online lead generation specific to sellers. And I think that you end up averaging 8 to 12 leads per month. And a seller-specific website. So check it out. I'd be honored if you looked. If it's your thing, check it out. If it's not, that's totally cool too. But do something. You could spend 800 or 1,000 and use other companies. That's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. Do something. You need to be doing something with online lead generation. It's a fact. All right, next, work that 90-day plan. Again, the 90-day plan is only in pencil, meaning you can erase it. If something's not working this week, don't hang on to it. This is not the time that you run a play and go, this thing's gonna work in 6 months, this thing's gonna work. Quit it. 6 months from now is too unknown. There's nothing that you and I can lean up against and say, this is how the world looks in 6 months. We don't freaking know. All you and I have is right now. What we have is today, and if it works today, run it again tomorrow. If it doesn't work today, reconsider if you're going to run it again tomorrow. This is the time in your business that is short sprints. This is the time in your business. And I know it goes against the idea. I know that I've sat on stage like many of my friends and said, listen, here's the tried and true stuff. That doesn't mean those things don't work. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is some of them aren't working the way they used to. Like for my friends who built a business on geographic farming, that they walked door to door and they walked those neighborhoods, how well are those businesses doing right now? Not good, not bad, just is what it is. But I mean, there's things that, I mean, I've heard people stand on stage and say, well, no matter what, you can always go and knock on their door. I'm not sure you're doing that today. Fair? So what we thought was concrete might not be. What we thought was absolutely truth might not be. Just be willing to know truth changes, and two things can be true at the same time. All right, start accountability for the day. Work in sprints. Some of the sprints that I'm doing, and I've shared this before, is I'm looking at my day in 5 main sprints. And if you know me, you'll know it's not very complicated. It's the early morning sprint, basically from like 5:30 or 6 until 8:30 or 9. It's the late morning sprint, which is basically from then until lunch. This is the afternoon sprint early, like lunch until 2 or lunch until 3. It's the early evening until dinner time. I've got 3 kids, 2 of them are school age and still at home. And so the evening I've kept like completely open for them. But then I have the 5th sprint. And the 5th sprint for me is the late night sprint. The 5th sprint is what am I doing at 9 when the kids are in bed, from 9 until about 11 or 11:30. And maybe you go later, maybe you go less. I mean, I don't know what your times look like, might not be mine, but I'm looking at the world every day in 5 sprints. What am I going to get done in this sprint? I'm thinking very little about tomorrow and next week because there's too many unknowns. I'm not thinking at all about next year hardly. Like, I mean, that's just like a poof in my thought. I don't know, no idea. I do know that I could do something in this sprint that means something in 2 hours. That I do know. And as I've gotten more and more and more focused on the time and more narrowly focused on the time, I promise you my results have gone up, and I think yours will too. All right, so 10 lead gen levers to start today. And this is how we'll end the conversation today. I was gonna go an hour and we're an hour 13. I know that you'll get the recording of this so you can skip around and play with what you want. And by the way, thank you for your graciousness. I've seen a couple of notes come through on the screen and this is awesome, or a text or two or whatever. Thank you. Thanks for being the very first people I've really showed this to. I've done it within my own group, United Home Group, but this was the first time that we like truly packaged it and delivered it. So thank you for your graciousness. 10 lead gen levers, and this is in the order I think you should do them. Database and sphere, duh. No matter what you and I do, database and sphere is always going to be king. Like what's old is new again. The problem is if your database isn't very big, then who cares? Quit talking about the freaking database. I can't tell you how frustrating it was to go to a real estate conference and hear about how important the database was when my database was 100 people. Who gives a damn? I only got 100 people. It's not big enough. The average database for realtors today is less than 200 people. That's a problem. So when you think about lead gen levers, I need you to think about lead gen to build the database, not lead gen to sell homes to the database. Fair? I think that you earn right to sell homes to the database. You earn the size of the database first. So first size, then result. Next is pay-per-click. And I'm not usually one to hop on here and say spend money on these things, but right now there's a handful of pay-per-click, like for a KW agent, and none of this presentation was geared only to KW by any means, but I'm at KW. Anybody at KW has Command. And on Command, you can tap into Facebook marketing. I've got friends that are driving leads through Command for $3 or $4 a lead. That's boneheaded cheap. That's ridiculous cheap. I've got friends that are using my Swift Hippo product, And Swift Hippo, the lead generation site, Hippo Pulse is the app to track your performance, so you can increase your performance and change it. But Swift Hippo, the lead gen site that are driving leads that are specific to sellers for like 20 bucks. That's as cheap as it gets. All right, so pay-per-click, I think it's important. Number 3 is social media. And I put social media behind pay-per-click, and here's why. Because pay-per-click works when you're working on something else. You hear the term leverage, leverage, leverage. Pay-per-click in your business is leverage. Now, you got to play red light, green light, like Gary's always said. So maybe for you, green light is 50 bucks in internet lead gen. Cool. Maybe it's 500. Maybe it's 5,000. Maybe you're one of my friends that can pay $50,000 in leads. Cool. Good for you. Doesn't matter where you are. You start with what you got. The old saying of you don't have to be great to start, you got to start to be great. That's true with pay-per-click. But I'm going to run my pay-per-click campaigns so that while I'm doing the rest of this stuff on this list of 10, I got online leads doing this all the time. It's important. When I go to a listing presentation and walk back out to my car, I need my pay-per-click, my online leads funneling somebody into my funnel. That's why I put it there. You could change it, but that's why I put it there. Number 3 is social media. Easiest time that I've seen as a real estate agent to be valuable in social media. By the way, if you're taking notes, value equals opportunity. The less opportunity you have, the less valuable you've been. Just own that. Remember, just own it. Just own it. The cool thing is you get to change it. The more valuable you are, the more opportunity you're going to earn. It's the law of the world. It's the law of reciprocity. Next is notice of defaults, the NODs. This one I'm going to go deep on next week, Thursday at 9 a.m. Thursday, is it August 6th, Lacey? Yes. Yeah, Thursday, August 6th, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Your ticket to get in is to buy my app from Hippo Pulse on the App Store or on Android. So consider it a $5 investment. If you hate the app, cancel the damn thing, and you're in for $5. Good for you. It's awesome. Perfect. But I'll go deeper on the NODs. These are coming back. I promise you, you're going to have agents this fall talking about how big NODs are. NODs have always been important, but NODs have not always been vital. In other words, there's not enough. So like you might be in a market where you go to a real estate conference and we go, hey, work expireds. And you go, sounds amazing. My market had 2 expireds last month. Guess what? You're not going to work expireds because there's only 2 last month. I mean, you might call both of those, but it's not a deep well. NODs, notice of defaults, that's where they're sent a letter saying, and then it's recorded, which is important for you, but you got to get the data somewhere. So like land voice, notice of defaults, or your title company, notice of defaults, whatever it is that you do, right? But the notice of defaults, that's where you start contacting people that have been told by their lender, their servicer, you're more than 1 month in arrears or you're 2 months in arrears. It's a notice of default. Like we're telling you, you are in default on your loan. Now there's some scripts that work and there's some scripts that absolutely don't. I'll give you some scripts next Thursday on the webinar of what you could use, but trust me, the NODs are going to matter. The NODs haven't been a big deal in our industry since like 07, 08, 09, like depending on where you were in the country, but NODs were a really big deal by 08 in most of the country. That's pushing 13 years ago. But they're about to be another big deal. Opportunity. All right, so next is circle prospecting. Circle prospecting hasn't ever been easier and more important than right now. And that's where you choose an area, then you prospect around it. Now, circle prospecting has usually returned a return on investment of about 1 opportunity per 80 contacts. That's really a lot. I'll give you some ideas next Thursday at 9 a.m., a couple of scripts that'll tighten that up a little bit, probably to about 1 in 50, but it's really hard to get better than that. But circle prospecting is amazing. And right now you've got the time and the bandwidth to get it done. So right now is when you do it. From there you have web graphic, which is a typo, so don't worry about that. I have a buyer. And in the I have a buyer, remember I mentioned it before, you can go to 7 steps to 10 listings on YouTube. Watch that. If you want, just go to it, watch it, and fast forward like 20 minutes. It's somewhere step 4. I did 7 steps to 10 listings a month. Go to step 4, the I have a buyer post. You can pitch the rest if you want and not watch it, but just go and watch that one piece. It's about 8 minutes, and I'll talk about I have a buyer. I will go deeper next Thursday at 9 a.m., and I'll talk about the I have a seller post too. Then is for sale by owner. It's interesting, right? Like we've gone back, especially like I live and work in Portland. We're in 96 cities, but of course I know the Portland market the best because I live in it, right? Like we're back to working for sale by owners every day. Yes, there's less of them. However, the ones who exist, you and I know that their motivation level is through the roof. And I'll give you 3 keys next week on Thursday morning at 9 of what we're doing with FSBOs right now that's getting traction. Some of it we knew has always gotten traction, but some of it we were surprised. All right, next is old expireds and old cancels. Everybody in your market, you should go. I like to go to Land Voice. I mean, if you want to find it somewhere else, that's cool. But go and call those old canceleds. Call the canceleds from March and April. Most MLSs, man, canceleds went through the roof. Like COVID hit and people went cancel, 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 cancel. Talked to an agent yesterday. They had 7 listings before COVID really hit. A week into COVID, they had 0 listings and also 0 sales. Go back and pull those old canceleds. They're all worth a conversation. They're all worth reaching out to. Same thing with the old expireds. In most of your markets, the market's very, very swift, which is a really good time to call those expireds from 4 months ago, 8 months ago. I mean, we're a little bit crazy in my group. We're calling expireds from 2 years ago because we got to make contacts. Remember when I said you just make contacts right now for contact's sake? That's the truth. Like you might think of the world and go, I'm going to make contacts for contract's sake. That's true. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the time you're living in today. The time you're living in today is you're just making contacts and you're throwing them in, throwing them in, throwing them in. Everything goes into a funnel. And I'll talk about what to do with those funnels next Thursday too. Next is virtual presentations. I'll give you some ideas next Thursday, but I wanted to give you the levers today. Those virtual presentations, I'll end with this. Every single one of you should go and record, just do it for like 10 minutes. Record a bit in your market. Let's say that you're in Charlotte, North Carolina. You would record how to buy a home in Charlotte with the least amount of money down during COVID. Think like a marketeer. Everything is COVID, 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 COVID. I know I'm sick of saying it too, but think like a marketeer. If you were trying to sell news, you would sell it during COVID, just like the news is doing. So be a marketeer. Quit thinking like a realtor. Shoot one that says how to sell your home and make the most amount of money in Charlotte during COVID. So those are very, very long tails. Those are long titles, but they're very specific. You don't need somebody watching from LA. You want somebody watching in Charlotte, right? Then what you do is you post it online. Now, what I like to do is I'll record it on Zoom and I'll push it out live to Facebook. The reason is Facebook is going to always take care of Facebook product. Facebook's going to increase Facebook Live. The problem is I don't like being Facebook Live because if I have a glitch on my internet or something happens or I say the wrong thing, I'm screwed. You can't go back and redo it. But I can record it on Zoom and then you can push it to Facebook Live so it looks like Facebook Live because it is. But it's pre-recorded, but you don't have to say it like that. Anyway, what I want you to do is I want you to start recording those. You push it out to the internet world, then you push it out to your database and you say, hey, everybody, I recorded a 10-minute piece on how to sell your home for the most amount of money. Yes, even during COVID. I did a piece on how to market your home and get multiple offers during COVID. By the way, if you can't figure out how to do those bits, get out of real estate. Like, you know how to do this. Every one of you knows how to do this. And if you don't, you need to right now. Otherwise, why are you being a realtor? Like, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but you get my point. And then you start sending it out everywhere. A friend of mine did one in my United Home group, did one and did it. It was how to buy a home. And they had one person watch it live. And they were like, man, that sucks. But that one person on Facebook ended up being a $700,000 buyer, unrepresented, and bought a house from him. Doesn't suck at all. It's awesome. What he found though was by the end of the day, 15 or 20 more people had watched it and engaged with it, like giving it a like or hey, thanks for the info or whatever. And so of course he followed up with all of those and set another appointment the next day. There's so much opportunity right now. You could do so much. I'm going to give you some ideas on Thursday with the virtual presentations that go deeper, but there's a couple of ideas that you could go and run with right now. I'm always a little bit hesitant to give 200 ideas because it's like, well, I can't do 200 anyway. So my hope is always that I can give enough ideas that you go, you know what, I'll try this one. You know what, I'll try that one. The truth is you're going to be stuck with this for a long time. Lacey, I just turned off the PowerPoint, so if you can get that down, that'd be great. The truth is you're stuck with this for a long time. A long time might be a few more weeks. It might be a few more months. It could be a couple more years. I don't know, and neither do you. None of us do. So what I mean by succeeding in a long-term COVID market is you got to make peace that it's not even a COVID market anymore. It's just life as we know it today. If I can help you with something, I'm doing what you're doing. I am working around the clock. I've never worked harder than I'm working right now. Partly because I don't know what to do, and partly because I'm trying everything, and partly because what keeps me up at night right now is that I'm missing opportunities right now. I don't want to miss opportunities right now. Like, you know that the business you take right now, you may never give back, but the business you lose right now, you may never get back. That's a big, big deal. And I keep hearing things like during recession is when the most millionaires are made. During recession is the greatest shift in money. Well, you know what? You and I are living in one. We're on the front edge of one. This could be a big, big deal, and I'll be damned if I miss it. I won't miss it. So I'm nervous about it. So I'm working around the clock, probably like you are. So if I can help you, my email, Cody Gibson at KW. If you want to engage on Instagram, I'd love to see you there. Cody Gibson 1. If you want to follow me there. Facebook says I'm full when it comes to friends. So when I feel bad about myself, I go there and it says I'm good. So check out Facebook if you want. And then my mobile number, if I can help you, my mobile is 907-529-5172. I didn't used to hand that out, but during COVID, it's been freaking hard. And I've had a few people reach out to me and say, hey, so-and-so gave me your mobile number. I just needed to tell you that, Cody, you really helped me with this. That made my day. Somebody else reached out and said, you know what? Someone gave me your mobile and I needed just one little bit of advice. And they were so gracious. They said, I don't need 30 minutes of your time. Just what do I do with this one thing? And I'm happy to help. We're going to get through this thing together, or we're not going to get through it at all. So if you need to call me or text me, man, I'm here for you. If you're having a tough time, call and tell me. Someone called me a few weeks ago and just said, man, I'm highly depressed. My business went from here to here to here during COVID, and like, I am depressed. You know what? Call me. And the thing is, I'll have a 5-minute funeral with you. I will not have a 5-month funeral with you. Those two things look different. But if I can help you, there's been plenty of people that have helped me in this industry. If this is when I can pour back in, I'm all into it. Like, this is everything I am right now. Last, if you want to check out the webinar next Thursday, we're going to limit it to 200 people because I want to be able to ask questions. With 200 people, we'll be able to stop and say, what do you think? And do you have questions about this? With more than that, it's really hard to do it. So we're going to limit it to 200. The only barrier of entry is you got to buy my app. And I hope you use it, by the way. But go and buy the app. Go buy Hippo Pulse in the iOS store. Download it, buy it. You get a free 2-week trial. If you want to cancel the damn thing during the 2 weeks, cool. I'm fine with that. But I want you to use it because I know how it can help your business. Email me a screenshot of that. This is how technical we are in my office. Email me a screenshot of it. As soon as you email me that, we're going to send you a link for next Thursday's webinar. There's no other cost. You can cancel the thing. You're not stuck with it. You can do whatever you want to with it. But we'll go deeper on those 10, and I'll give you a handful of ideas for each of them. And that'll be kind of like a continuation of what we talked about today. I hope you got something from this. I hope that there was something valuable or something said that maybe you already knew, but you heard a different way, or you heard again and you said, that makes sense now. That's what we're always after. I'll leave you with this last and final thought. It was the wedding you were going to go to that got canceled. It was your daughter's Taekwondo class that got put on hold or went virtual. It was the church that you went to that you couldn't go to anymore, at least not in person for a while. It was the gym you went to that you can't go to. Your life wasn't put on hold. Your goals and your dreams and your family, those things weren't put on hold. Those are alive and they're well. They just might not look the way they did before. I'm a firm believer that if you're alive right now, it's for a reason. I believe if you're here right now selling real estate, it's for a reason. I don't think it's a mistake. I don't think it's an accident. I refuse to think I'm an accident, and I refuse to think that you are. But what that does is that puts a giant foot on our throat to be valuable. If you're willing to be valuable, people will work with you. If you're not valuable, you'll be having to search for people forever. Think about that. I hope you got something from this. It's been my pleasure. I've loved being here. Thanks for watching this for the very, very first time. I hope you grab a couple of those books. If you read them and get an aha from them, send me a message. I'd love to know. Maybe your aha will help me too. We get through this thing together. Have an amazing day. Enjoy.